everyone, and welcome to another episode of Women Like Me Stories in Business. Today, I have a fantastic guest, and I can't wait to dive into what she's going to help us through. So, let me tell you a little bit about our conversation, and then I'm going to introduce her, and away we go. So, today's conversation is one that so many women quietly need, but don't always know how to put it into words. My guest is Amanda Meggait. She is the heart behind Horizons, Energetics, and Quintessential Counseling and Support Services. And her story is not just about healing, but it's about coming home. After spending 15 years living in chronic pain from autoimmune disease, that's a long time, Amanda reached a breaking point, and what changed was everything. It wasn't just another treatment. It wasn't just another protocol or a promise. It was a decision. And it was this decision that stopped seeing her body as something that had betrayed her and instead began listening to it as her greatest ally. Now, Amanda helps other women reconnect with their bodies, honor their emotions, and trust messages that they've been taught to ignore. So, this is a conversation about alignment, about truth, and about what happens when you finally stop abandoning yourself. Amanda, thank you so much for being here. Okay, did I mess up on any of those words?
Well, first off, like your intro is like, I'm like, oh, like you summarized everything I said so well. I was like tearing up a little bit.
Aw.
And yes, it's Amanda Meggait. So I'm Horizon Energetics and I'm joining Quintessence Counseling and Supportive Services in Abbotsford as a counselor. So
Beautiful,
that's there.
beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm joining a team over there.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, well, let's dive in. So take us back. What was life like during those 15 years of chronic pain?
Yeah. So it all started, I was 23 and I got pregnant with my first child. And within 6 weeks, I was covered in hives. Every joint was swollen. I was off work. Within 2 weeks of finding out I was pregnant, I was no longer able to work um, full time. And then within a month, wasn't at all. And I don't, it was total hell. Like it was miserable. Like hives, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. So I had 7.5 months of hives, like over my whole
Oh,
face. And before that, in hindsight, there were signs like I would get these like rotating swellings. So like my eye would swell shut, then the other eye would start to swell, or my upper lip or my bottom. And it was just, I mean, it was like devastating. You're young, um, it's out of your control. And yeah, it's my peers, like I couldn't relate, you know? So it took about 2 years to get diagnosed, and they said, okay, we think you have rheumatoid arthritis. And I had gone to see so many specialists,
oh,
so many different things. And from that point on, then I started pharmaceuticals. Like you start with this pill, that pill, and as side effects come in, you to go off things, and then injections, and then I had to go off the injections due to liver issues. And so, yeah, over the years, I had tried everything, um, acupuncture, autoimmune protocol diets, all those kind of things. And yeah, I ended up having another child and then that was it. But their dad would buckle them into the car seat and I would go where I was going and then someone would come out and unbuckle them because I couldn't buckle their car seats.
oh,
And
wow.
I remember like I would pick them up with like my arms as kind of like claws. I couldn't like the hands were out. I had an electric jar opener. I had a handicap toilet, like an elongated toilet put in. I mean, my ex-husband at the time, or husband at the time, was like he'd brush my hair, unbutton my pants. Like it was a lot. It was a lot.
Wow. Wow. So, it almost sounded like an allergy when you were first describing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Wow.
getting pregnant is something that your immune system has to work with, right? Because all of a sudden there's
Yes.
something else happening, you know.
Yes.
And my body just went into full on like what the heck's happening mode. And
Wow.
it wasn't always like it kind of goes in cycles, you know. So I would kind of get a handle on it, but I was in pain every day for 15 years. It was
Oh,
a 2 to an 8, you know, and I would do something one day and know it was going to be 3 days on the couch. Yeah, and as I got older, like through my 30s, just started adding on other things like, oh, now we're watching my thyroid. Now I have a secondary autoimmune condition. just stuff just kept piling up,
Wow. Wow.
yeah, and it took a lot of my energy and a lot of my focus. Yeah.
Wow. Well, where was your moment when you realized something needs to change?
Well, it was 2016, just over 8 years ago, was that? No, 10 years ago. We're 10 years. It's
Yeah,
20,
yeah, it's a lot.
2026. Yeah. I was like,
Yes.
it doesn't feel right. And my friend had suggested this natural health practitioner who did energy work for something my son had been going through in 2015. And without hesitation, I'd booked, I'd spent the money, I'd taken my son in. And then I ended up taking a cast iron frying pan out of the oven without thinking, just grabbed it without an oven mitt. I burnt my whole hand. And anytime something would happen, like if I had a bad flu or any sort of spike in my immune system, and I just wouldn't know what would happen. So I burnt my hand and my whole system went, no, thank you. And just, it was so bad. It was the worst flare. Like I couldn't close my hands into a fist. Like my jaw would be so sore I couldn't chew, and I was just miserable. And then it was like, oh right, why don't I go and see this person I took my son to? Um, and I had you typically have to wait a while to see a rheumatologist.
Yeah.
And I'm someone who didn't really like the meds, so I would take them because I was trying to live, but then there'd be all these side effects, like
Mm.
and so I would kind of go off them. And so if I could manage without pain meds, I would. Because I'm just really sensitive. Even taking Tylenol will mess me up for 4 days or whatever, right? So
Wow.
I'd kind of not seen my rheumatologist in a few years. So I had to wait then to get back in. Um, and I went, it was my 36th birthday. That was the day I went for my first session. And I hobbled in looking like a 90-year-old, with a cane kind of scenario. I didn't have a cane, but I don't, yeah. I was like, I couldn't have even used one because I couldn't make a piss. Um,
Aw.
And so I'm lying there, and the woman knows I'm there for rheumatoid arthritis. It's pretty obvious what's going on. I'm in pain, swollen, whatever. And she used muscle testing to figure out what points in the Chinese meridian system we were going to hold and what the thought was. And I remember thinking, like, how does she know that I think this? Like, I haven't said this out loud, you know? And so just like I was just so curious. I was
Yes.
like what's going on here? Like I'm not saying anything and she's just asking my body questions and it's telling her what I haven't said out loud, you know? And so yeah, I was kind of like insanely curious and hooked at that point. And so that was May 2016, and I started going every like 3 to 4 weeks usually. Um, and I don't know if that was the moment. I think that was certainly one of the moments.
Hmm.
Um, there was a lot of moments, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah. Yes.
yeah,
Well, over 15 years, I can only imagine how many moments you experienced. Yeah. Well, what did you believe about your body back then? And how was it how was that belief impacting you and your healing?
yeah. I mean, I totally believe my body was betraying me. When you're
Mm,
23 years old and your peers are all doing whatever they want, right? Most people at 23 aren't thinking, oh, I can't do that. Or if I do that, I can't do anything tomorrow. And
yeah.
that was my normal. I remember one time, having, I probably got dropped off because I wasn't able to drive. We had a standard at the time. I couldn't drive it. So now I'm not able to drive. I couldn't, it was a foreigner. I couldn't get in and out on my own. I mean, it was just absurd. Um, and so I got and dropped off at the coffee shop and where my friends hung out. And I walked up and a friend was showing people how I had been walking because people hadn't seen me in a while. And it wasn't making fun of me, but it was that was a tough moment,
I
because it was
bet.
like, first off, to also see like, oh, that's what people think of me. That's what I look like. That's what's happening. And so, yeah, was I upset with my body? Like I was confused. Like, why are you doing this? Like,
Yeah.
what's
Wow.
what's wrong with me that this is happening? And it was so many unexplained things. And it just was,
Yeah.
yeah, like, what's wrong with you?
Mhm.
That's definitely my thought process around that. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you talk about learning to listen to your body. So, what does that mean in real life?
Now or in the early days?
Well, you tell me. I don't know.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
let's assume somebody's listening and they're saying, "Well, I've got pain, I've got this."
Mhm.
What does she mean listen to her body?
Yeah. Well, I think in the early days, now it's a bit of a quicker process. So I'll go back a bit.
Sure.
Um, like in those first sessions, because in energy work, you're not necessarily talking a lot. So she's saying maybe, let's think about anger, and we're holding, some points here or whatever, and the kidneys or whatever. And and then you're just thinking about anger and then tracking what's happening in your body, what's going on. Like, am I coming out of myself? Is that what's happening? And do I feel my sense elevating? Like, where do I feel it? What area, what organ, what memories come up? What person
Hmm.
comes up? So that was kind of the process back then. And so I just started to realize, like, oh, what I felt in my body was connected to other things. And because I was starting to notice shifts, like I could make a fist again, like my pain was reducing. Um, and so I had like that positive reward feedback loop being established of like when I listen to my body and I give it what it needs, I experience less pain. And physical pain is a very big motivator. And so I just would stop and be like, okay, what's going on here? And like I'd put my hands on whatever it was. Like I remember a couple years back, I was just started to have like this immense pain in my shoulders, in my back. And it was just kind of like locked. And it was like, okay, what's going on here? So I just put my hand there and just kind of breathed into it. It's like body, what do you have to say? What's going on? And this feeling of grief just like welled up, right?
Wow.
And then it was like, okay, my body's holding a lot of grief. I'm holding it here. It's weighing me down. And now I need to gently explore that grief and give space for that grief and air it out because the body's holding the things I can't say yet or look at yet or whatever. And so now I've
Mhm.
started to trust that when it shows up, it's ready for me to do something about it. So it's like, okay, what's this grief? And I had gotten as a part of my process of listening to my body and moving into a space where I was in alignment and in truth, I ended up leaving my marriage and changing my career. And I had been so excited and felt so free, and I was pain free in my body that I think a lot of like the grief and the processing of that I hadn't really done
Mm.
in real time
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
felt so good, right? And it was kind of this contradictory of like, can you feel good and be happy and grateful and still sad? And at that point in time, I didn't have really have a framework for that. So I think when I felt sad, I just was kind of like, you can't be sad. This is so great. You're not in pain. And then it was just like, you can't be sad. Chunk, throw it in your body.
Mm.
Right.
Wow.
So then it just became a process of like, okay, like if I was sad, if I have grief, what is it? And what does it need? And, how does that show up to care and slow down? So,
It's so as you're talking, I'm just thinking about how what you're saying is so true for what I know because we just hold stuff in our bodies and we stuff it down in there and we think, oh, well, that's the best thing we can do is just, get rid of it, stuff it down. But eventually it comes up.
yeah. Yeah. You
It
know,
says it's time to deal with this
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like I want to get to it before it is something bigger again, right? Like,
Oh,
I don't need my body to get so loud. So I've kind of I'm trying to still build in a process of an early warning system to check in to
yes.
slow down.
Yeah. Well, I think many women do disconnect from their bodies. And why do you think this happens to us?
Well, I mean, I know I disconnected from my body very early on. I was a very sensitive kid. My dad had been a pastor for a number of years when I was growing up, and I was the oldest of four, and I was very sensitive about what was happening, and if there was kind of like adults not getting along or questioning things or whatever, like I was so I don't know, and so I don't know, I just developed this habit of like leaving. Something was intense or too much or dark. There was a lot of like it was the 80s satanic panic. There was like demons on the car and if the car wasn't starting and
Yeah.
I was so sensitive. I went to my first movie in the theater. I think it was the Care Bear movie for a birthday party. And the no heart character came on, the bad guy, and I ran out screaming. Like I just couldn't
Oh,
process that. I'd never been to the theater. It was too much.
yes.
And I was not little. Like I was probably older than you'd think. But um yeah, and I know too, I was spanked as a kid. That was a part of my parents' procedure for, correcting our behavior. And
Hmm.
as a sensitive kid, I like now I can track back. It's like that's when I really started to leave my body because there's like the shame, I don't like getting in trouble. It physically hurts. So I used to call it like piecing out. Like I would just piece out of my body, just like whoop, doop. And
Mm,
before you know it, like that was normal, you know,
hmm.
like any
Wow.
sort of discomfort, I'm out. And
Yeah.
then I was in chronic pain. And the only way I coped was to essentially not really be in my body. So
Right.
yeah, I mean,
Wow.
it's a process still of coming back into the body and of noticing, oh, I'm uncomfortable here. How can I be here safe now? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, how are our emotions valuable information? So, can you explain that in a way that women can truly understand?
I think the emotion I've enjoyed the absolute most over the last few years is anger. Because as a
Mm.
kid, I mean, I remember getting grounded for 2 weeks because I was so angry at a friend who had lied about me. She had lied and said I had said a swear word, which I had not said. But I was so angry that I got in trouble. My parents were like, "No, you're too like you can't be angry." And so the message was well received. I don't be angry. I don't know if it was actually 2 weeks. That feels like it feels like a childhood remembering. I don't think it was that long. I was grounded, but I don't think it was.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and so you're not angry, like you don't want to be difficult, you don't want to be labeled a B, like a BHIT, whatever, I can't even spell it.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, that was one of the emotions that I didn't have a grid for. Like I was such a sensitive kid. I got in trouble for being angry. I wasn't going to do that again. Like I just never wanted to be in trouble. So I was going to adapt, I was going to change so that I didn't get in trouble.
I think it's similar to, I remember being a kid and being told, "What are you crying about? You got nothing to
Yeah.
cry about. I'll give you something to cry about. You want to
Yeah.
keep crying." That kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Or yeah, just and so I think as a child, we're shut down with those emotions
Yeah,
rather than
totally.
being allowed to feel them and
Yeah.
being comforted because we are feeling them. We end up being shut down by the adults who just don't want to deal with it.
Because they don't know how to deal with it.
No,
They
they
just
don't
deal with
know.
their own feelings, and it's
Yes.
just here's how we pass it on and pass it
Yep.
on.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
what happens when we suppress what our body and emotions are trying to communicate?
yeah. Well, with the anger, I had a bullying incident when I was in grade 4, and I had been the new kid. We moved so many times when I was a kid, so I'd only been there 6 months. To make a long story short, this group of girls, the popular girls, had decided that I had taken an art project from their friend that had left shortly around the time I came. It was an art project on the wall, it didn't have a name on it. I knew it was mine because I'd handed in late and I'd gotten these new markers and it had these different shades of green. So like I knew it was mine. I
Yeah.
was like, no, it's mine. And they were like, no, you've taken it. It's so and so's. And they were yelling at me and whatever. And they chased me into the bathroom and I was on top of the toilet crying. And my male teacher came in, scooped me up like a baby and carried me out. And I was, you know what? I was angry, but I didn't feel like I was allowed to be angry. I don't know if I even told my parents that it happened, because like I don't want to get in trouble. And so I swallowed all of that anger. And so in like through my own kind of like energetic process, that incident came up and I couldn't see myself after that incident. I don't actually remember the next like 9 months.
Wow.
And then because I was just in my mind's eye, I was a ball of flame. I was just on fire. I was so angry. I was just flames. And I couldn't see or remember anything else. And then I saw myself as a child like swallowing these flames. until I was visible again. So I'd stuffed all the anger, I'd swallowed it in, and that was like what, age like 10? Well,
Wow.
13 years later, all of that anger was flaming out in my hands and every single joint I had. And
Mm.
here was this flame, right? This heat. And so a part of it, I'm sorry, I got lost in the story, but like this, so having that visual connection of like, oh, here's what I did. And then it was like, well, what was the anger wanting to say? Like, what did the anger need to say? And it needed to say to those girls, no, this is my artwork. You don't get to talk like, I'm not engaging with you or whatever it was.
Yeah.
We need to shut the door and say no. And as I worked through that, I felt my anger like externally, and then I felt it kind of like come into me. It's like it integrated,
Yeah.
It's like so now anger is a part of like my backbone, and I experience anger as like a flare up, just like a flash, right? Like a
Yeah.
warning sign, like whoosh. And then that's it. I don't usually stay angry, but now I'm like, okay, there's a no here for me. There's something here that is not in alignment that I'm not okay with, and it's my responsibility to communicate it and action it for myself.
Yeah.
And that usually
Wow.
doesn't involve really much anyone else. But
Hmm.
like, yeah. So I guess that's my favorite emotion to kind of like work with again and to like have connected to myself. Because
Yeah.
it's a part of me that was saying all along, like, oh, that wasn't okay. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's not cool. And
Yeah.
that, to have shut that down for so many years is like devastating,
Well,
you know?
how you use the word alignment. So how would we know if we're out of alignment? How does that actually feel?
I think you start by when you feel the most in your zone, right? So when do you feel in alignment? Are you out in your garden? Are your
Mm,
hands in the dirt and the bees are buzzing and it's warm and you're doing exactly what you want to do and you feel in yourself, right? Or whatever it is.
yeah.
Like whatever that moment of alignment is for you.
Yeah.
And initially it might be quite small, but the more you pay attention to it, and once you make a choice or you make a decision, you fill in like, oh, am I in that sweet spot? Like, am I in myself? Like for me, it feels like I'm sitting down within myself, um, which is a
Mm,
hard sensation to explain, but it's like at my tailbone, it feels like I'm like present. I'm sitting there, you know. And when
mm,
I'm not in alignment, when I'm contorting myself out to meet someone else's needs or societal thing I think I need to, I can feel my energy is like out, right? And so it's like, okay, I'm outside of myself. I'm outside of where it is. So yeah, I think the easiest way to start to learn alignment is to find, okay, when do I? And then pull up a situation and just feel into yourself. It's like, am I in that same kind of zone? Am I in the garden or am I not? And
mm.
then what's one little change to bring me more closer to the garden in my work or in my relationships or whatever it is?
Hmm. Well, what are some of those little things that women could do? Like how do you like I totally understand about being in the excuse me, in the zone.
Yeah,
Get that. And where you're feeling like you're in your body and you're
yeah,
powerful and you're calm and whatever that is for each person.
yeah,
But we disconnect.
yeah.
So how do we really like what are the small signs that we've disconnected?
Um, and yeah, I mean, so many. It's like, why did I just say yes? I wanted to say no. I'm
Uh,
frustrated. Why am I frustrated? Like frustration. Anytime you got frustration, whoa, pause, right? It's like I said yes to that and I wanted to say no. So here I am, I'm out,
yeah,
you know. I put someone else's
yeah.
needs above my own. I am sacrificing, I'm the silent martyr, whatever it is. So it's like if I
Mm,
have that frustration or anger or anything like that, any emotion we might consider like a bad one, from programming from childhood, then get curious. Because if you start
yeah.
to make the connections around what it is, like the first step is always awareness, you know? So it's, oh, I wanted to say no and I said yes. And now I'm experiencing this frustration and I'm feeling it in my body in this way. right? So you start to track
Yes.
what I'm feeling in my body, when and why, and then you kind of have a roadmap. So when you feel it, you're like, whoa, there's that feeling. I know I'm out of myself because I've already
Mm,
tracked. So many times I notice when I'm outside of myself, I have a fuzziness in my chest. My heart beats a little faster. And so now I have my map in my body of like, okay, I need to adjust something here.
yeah. Recently I said yes when I wanted to say no. And every time I knew I needed to do something, because I said yes, I would, I just wanted to lay down on the couch.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there's that couch feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, wow. So, well, why do you think many women struggle to trust themselves?
I mean, societal messaging from birth, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we are rewarded for caring for others, for being outside of yourself. You're not
Yeah.
rewarded or praised as a child for being in yourself, you know?
Yes.
I mean, we're still dealing with, the guy's confident, but the girl's pushy or bossy, you know?
Right.
So it's just the subtle messaging. And women typically are more emotionally sensitive. We're more emotionally attuned to what is happening outside of ourselves. Part of that
Mhm.
is it is conditioning, and part of it is just natural, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just so early on that it can be really hard. There's no big incident. It's a thousand little messages that we've interpreted.
Yeah. And I think as women, we've been so conditioned that we are caregivers. And that's in the genes too, I'm sure. But we give too much.
Yeah.
We just give so much and too much to the point where we end up being depleted, and then we're headed for wherever we're headed. And when that happens, we're not our best self, so we're not being our best mothers, best wives, best
Yeah.
friends. We're not being best to ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, it's no surprise to me that women are the ones, majority of the people who have autoimmune diseases, right? A lot of
Mhm.
these diseases that are
Yeah,
affecting women.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know Gabor Mate, I'm going to butcher what he says in his book, The Myth of Normal, but he basically lists off the attributes of someone who experiences autoimmune disease. And I remember when I read it, like, I was already far into my journey of rheumatoid arthritis correction, and I haven't had any symptoms now for almost 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So,
amazing.
yeah. But he talks about the person who can't say no, the person who cares too much, the person who this and that. And it was just like, oh, check, 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 you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Yeah,
Wow.
it's costing us. It is costing us a lot to continue to behave in this manner, to continue to discredit our own body's wisdom, our own needs, our own wants.
Yes, absolutely. What would you say to a woman who feels completely disconnected from herself right now?
Hmm. Um, I would say there's hope. I would say that connection to yourself, you are. I mean, we actually are. We are here, so there it is a bit of like oh, I'm not in my body, but yes, I actually am. So it's just like just taking the micro moments, like even a breath, with every breath that you go, oh, I'm breathing, I feel the air in my lungs, you're connecting to yourself.
Right.
With every cup of tea, and you feel the moment of the warmth of your hands, and then track the
Yeah,
liquid coming in, you are
yeah,
connected to yourself.
yeah, yeah,
um, and it just all these micro moments, and they add up to starting to build that self-trust, that feeling connected to yourself. You
yeah. What do you do in counseling sessions to help women through all of this that we deal with? Us crazy women.
Yeah.
We're not crazy. I'm sorry.
No,
I
no, we're
take
no,
that
no.
back. We're not crazy. But what do
Yeah.
you do? What do you do? How can you help?
You know, I think that I know for me, like just having a place where nothing feels wrong. So it's like let's spit it all out. Let's slow it down. Like self-compassion, building in that self-compassion and just like, well, is that actually true? So it's gentle inquiry into like, okay, what is going on? And if we
Mhm.
were to notice something in the body, what would it be? And like, oh, okay, so we have something in the body now. Like, when was the first time you felt that? You know, going back, because oftentimes our body will, when we slow down, start to say, okay, what is there? Especially when you have that feeling of safety and you're supported, like you're in a contained space with someone who you've built some trust with, the
Yeah.
body's like, all right, let's do this. I'm gonna show you some stuff, and I really believe in like gentle unfolding. I'm done whipping myself into behaving. I did that for, almost 40 years, and I'm just not going to anymore. So that is like with women, and I also work with men, but with women, like how can we be kind? How can we slow down? What if what you know already is true? And maybe you don't know that you know it, but I know you know it, So
Mm,
it's like I have total faith in the person sitting in front of me that
yeah.
their own wisdom and their own light and their own knowing is
Yeah.
there. It's just we're just gonna
Yeah.
it a bit.
I have a family member, a sister, and she has fibromyalgia.
Mm,
And she was on years ago. She's got it all under control now, but years ago she was completely out of control. And she's a single mom, and she was on such heavy duty medications that we were all quite concerned.
mm,
And so I decided that I was going to the doctor with her. And so in I go with her, and I sat in the doctor's chair, or not the doctor's chair, but I sat in the room, and I just listened to the two of them. And she was in her space cadet, drugged out mode from pain that she's in. And so I said to the doctor, I said, well, like, like, what causes this?
mm.
And he said it was emotions. He said that to me. And I said, well, then, why are you giving her all this medication? Shouldn't she be getting counseling? And he said, yeah, she should be getting counseling because it is dealing with emotions. And now when I talk to her about it, she's not on drugs anymore, thank goodness, and she's doing very well. But now she can pinpoint when that fibromyalgia started. She can pinpoint
Mm.
them
Yeah,
what was happening in her life, the three episodes that were dramatic that happened to her life, and that poof, next thing you know, she
yeah,
just can't cope.
yeah. Well, and our body's saying, listen, something's wrong here.
Something's wrong. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm just so thankful, Amanda, that you decided to come on and do this with us. I have one last question for you.
Eh,
And so that is, if your body could speak directly to every woman listening right now, what would your body say to them?
hmm. Okay, give me a second here. I think, what would it say? Like, I'm so excited for you.
Hmm.
Like we have these kind of conversations, and I think, like, oh man, like, so my body is just like excited. It's just like, yay, if we can, like every woman, I think that turns her light on, like it just spreads it so much, and so, yeah, I guess, I don't know, my body is just excited. So I don't really have,
No,
uh,
I totally get that because you've been there.
yeah,
You've lived through it, you've come out of it, and now you know how to help others to do the exact same thing.
yeah, yeah.
And of course it's like looking, going, oh, you have no idea how good this is going to be for you.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And it's like do
Yeah.
it, and it's gonna be okay,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think that yeah, because they're in pain, they're
Yeah.
depressed, they're feel out of control maybe, and
Yeah.
and and for you to be able to know,
Yeah.
ah,
Well,
I
and I
know.
was so tracked in with the physical pain, but it was
Yeah,
actually the emotional, like in hindsight, once I was kind of into it,
yeah,
like I was in so much emotional pain all the time,
yeah,
and at this point in time, if I were like if the rheumatoid arthritis came back tomorrow and I couldn't feel it away, or I couldn't whatever, I would still be okay. I would still yeah, I would still be happy. I would still be joyful. Because I'd still be free, because
yeah,
the physical pain wasn't actually the thing. It was the emotional pain. It was the mental anguish. It
yeah,
was, it was the complete suppression of myself and contorting out all the time, you know? And it's
Yes.
like that I'm not doing anymore. And when I catch myself out, I can gently come back in.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I think that this is really going to help a lot of women out there who who are in serious trouble and really need some help, but also, some of us who just need that little bit of a wake-up call to like, oh, even as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, oh yeah, I've got a little kinks here and there that maybe I should ask my body what's going on. What?
Yeah.
Hello, hello.
Yeah.
Why is this hurting? This doesn't make any sense. So yeah, so I just want everyone to know that I will have Amanda's information in the show notes. So if you want to reach out to her for any kind of help or guidance or whatever you need, don't hesitate to do so. And that's the great thing about the internet these days. You can be anywhere, and if you connect with
Mhm.
someone, that you can help, then it doesn't always have to be physical, which is fabulous these days. We can just get help almost anywhere.
Yeah. And I'll add
Yeah.
one thing, Julie. If you ask your body and nothing comes, trust it will, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not always maybe in the moment, but
Yes.
you know,
Exactly. Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Amanda. And thank you, all of you, for watching this episode of Stories in Business Women Like Me. I did that backwards, but that's okay. My brain is still in our conversation. Okay, everybody, take
Thanks,
care.
Julie.
We'll talk soon. Bye.